My name is Rachel Vaughan. I wanted to do a ley line presentation today for the public. I haven't done one like that since probably a couple of years. So ley lines are magnetic frequencies that travel across the Earth, and they're often called Earth energy lines. There's lots of different kinds of ley lines. You get different names. There's the Becker-Hagans grid and the Hartmann grid, Hartmann-Curry lines. So there's different kinds. Earth energy lines are the ones that you find out in nature. The ley lines of straight alignments are the ones that you find in cities. So you've got your natural lines are earth energy lines. And when they're controlled with piezoelectric structures, they become known as ley lines. And this is only something I've learnt reasonably recently. So you can use the term ley line for all of those lines, but the earth energy lines are the ones that are really healthful for people for going out and sort of singing or doing anything that you want to do in a ley line, meditating, whatever, with energetic protection, of course. Uh, but the controlled ones are the straight ones in cities. So natural earth energy lines are actually meandering. They're serpentine, as Alfred Watkins described in his book, The Old Straight Track. So I wanted to give a little presentation today. I've had some just the most amazing psychic development course members who produce the most beautiful photographs. I teach them how to see the lays. They go out and find them. They share them in the course. I beg them, can I share these publicly? And most of the time, 99% of the time, they're so gracious and say, yes, you can. And, some don't want to have their names shared and some do. So I always work that and organise that out. So I give people credit because, this is their work. It's my passion, and yeah, it just gives me such joy to meet amazing people on this during this process on this journey, and that they're so giving and kind that they would share their images. So you'll hear me thanking people as I go through because that's I want to acknowledge them for what they've done because you don't you can find ley lines quite easily, but sometimes it's not so easy to find them. So, it takes time and effort. And, they do the course so that, that takes their time and effort too to learn, and then they go out and find them. So you're very privileged today to be able to see these images. These beautiful people have shared them with me so that I can share them with you. And so we'll start with the presentation. Okay, so we'll start with this screen. So this is a beautiful tea tree in a forest on the south coast of South Australia. It's a sacred and protected forest, so I won't name it. This particular tree was not used, was showcased in a couple of videos that I've done just recently for the March equinox, 21st and 22nd of March. I went out into this beautiful forest and took some footage and did my best to try and drum up people into, going out into ley lines, or just number one, going out into nature on the equinox. So equinoxes and solstices, they're the times, so that's March 20th, 21st, 22nd, same dates for June, September and December. And these are really powerful times. With the way that I grew up, I know that there are powerful times for really dark rituals. So the way to counteract that, until we can stop them happening completely, is for people to go out in numbers and do beautiful things in those spaces, so that we undo this dark energy that's been imprinted into the Earth's frequency, into her ley lines, into her meridians for millennia. And there's a lot of reasons why they do these things. One of the most important things to remember is we so outnumber them. That the people that do these disgusting rituals, they're a very small number. There's so many of us. And as long as we're conscious of this, we only need a certain number of people to be conscious of how important ley lines are, and getting out into them and, producing, beautiful music in those spaces, or just sharing joy, being happy in those spaces, dancing, singing, whatever makes you feel good and happy in those spaces. It puts a different frequency in. It helps to balance and clear the negativity that gets poured in, which keeps the earth healthier, and it keeps everybody else and nature healthier as well. And our original people have been doing this for millennia. They just, unfortunately, they've been decimated through colonialism so that, they're not doing, well, they're not able to do the work in the numbers that they used to. And of course, they're still doing it as best they can, but they don't have the numbers that they had before. So as I go through, I'll just be showing these beautiful photographs. This one's from Anita, and just sharing and just showing you. I'll mark them with a circle to see, so you can see where the circle is. So ley lines are tunnels of energy with a powerful magnetic field. And that's important when we get into crop circles a little bit in a little while. These magnetic frequencies travel in spirals, and that's what we actually see when a ley line shows itself. It's a circle and another circle and another circle, and they're in perspective. And that's how you can actually see them. So we do have the ability to see ley lines. Birds and insects have been seeing them forever. Animals see them too. So it's absolutely astonishing when you see how perfect these circles often are. It's just, and I'll be going backwards and forward through the presentation so you get a bit of an idea. One thing to remember, and I'll show a screen for this in a little while, is to let your eyes go a little bit out of focus as you're looking at the photographs. Relaxed vision helps you to see a wider range of the electromagnetic spectrum than full, focused vision. If you wear glasses, you could take those off unless it's all just a smudge and you won't see anything at all. But it does help if you're myopic or yeah, if you struggle to see things. Another thing to remember too, when you take a photograph of a ley line, it's actually quite clear in a photograph. It might not be as clear when you're looking at it out in nature. So the circles often appear between trees, between bushes, along paths or walkways, and that's usually where you'll see people walk through because it's a natural parting, and these paths are the paths of least resistance. So these are what were the Roman roads, those sorts of things, because again, nature doesn't actually like to grow within a ley line. I sort of vacillate between whether or not it's uncomfortable for them because it's very obvious that they avoid it, or it's out of reverence for the frequency. But you'll see with these photographs over and over and over again, you'll see how the plants avoid growing in the ley lines or the earth energy lines. They are most obvious along paths and roads, which obviously that the Romans were well aware of. And the Romans were known to pave their roads along ley lines. So there's different ways that ley lines are depicted on maps and things. Sorry, it's very fuzzy. This is the St. Michael, St. Mary line that goes through the UK. And and this is a beautiful example of how they're not just perfectly straight lines. They go all over the place. So these lines are not perfect straight lines. Some of the depictions will be, more sort of straight line type versions. This is the Indigenous Australians map of ley lines, the most significant ley lines. And you can see that's not perfect straight lines, and they don't make a perfectly neat grid because they're a natural phenomena, and natural phenomena don't tend to be perfect, neat squares or grids. So there's a difference between ley lines and portals. Again, ley lines are energetic channels. They traverse the surface of the earth, and usually they're at ground level or just hovering above the ground. But you can also get them sky leys, what I call sky leys, and they travel above the ground. And in the UK, there's very good examples of tumps and mounds, and these were actually built up to bring the height of the land up to the point of where the portals were, the most significant portals. And again, this was for ritualistic purposes when the Romans were living there. And I think that the people that came after also recognised the significance of the ley lines and the portals. And I love this image because it's obviously a crop circle right next to a tump. So this is the tump here, so that's a mound of earth. And these were created when, it took a lot of effort to gather up earth and mound it up high. They didn't have, the sort of machinery we have now. And I love this because I think what's actually happened here, a crop circle has occurred and they've marked it out. If you had limited wheat or limited seed or stock to plant, you wouldn't want to plant it where a crop circle would occur because you're going to lose, the ability to grow, to actually, reap reap what you've sown. So I think in some circumstances, the tungsten mounds might have actually been built in these locations because it was a sign for the agriculturalists not to actually plant their plants there. Now, the reason why it's not in exactly the same place, these portals, crossing points of ley lines, can move around. So they're not completely static. A lot of the time, you'll still get these beautiful walkways through nature, but occasionally ley lines will move. And the crop circles do obviously occur within the crossing point of those ley lines. In my opinion, they're actually created by ball lightning following ley lines as the ley lines go around the vortex of the portal space, and the microwave energy from the ball lightning cooks the nodes of the grass stalks, and then the grass stalks lay over. And my personal opinion is that the ley lines and crossing points of ley lines are repositories for akashic information. And when the ball lightning gets caught up in the lays and swirls around in the vortex, it actually prints out onto the earth information from the akashic. That's the way I look at it. So this is just an example of other people also feeling that, ley lines are considered to have, psychic power or connection to, a fifth dimensional frequency. Rory Duff, who sadly passed away recently, amazing man. He taught us that the ley lines were going to come into permanent harmony time in December of 2024, which of course they did. He died not long after that. I think it was late last year, 2025. Very, very sad. He's left quite an amazing legacy. So he was what's the word for him? Think of it, bio something. It was a scientist. So he had a lot of ways of studying ley lines and using, devices and really studying them beyond what I do, which is just seeing and feeling them. And not only was he able to prove that they existed, he had ways of describing, different sizes, different magnitudes of frequencies. And he also said that he believed that they were a repository for akashic information. What's really interesting about ley lines is you've got two different sides of science. You've got one group of scientists that say, oh yeah, birds and insects use them to navigate. And then you've got your secret society type scientists that say, oh no, ley lines don't exist. It's a pseudoscience. It's rubbish, which is hilarious. And when you get this disparity, you can be pretty much assured that you've got those in secret societies that don't want you to know that ley lines exist. And then you've got the scientists that are obviously proving this and through replicable studies can prove that, yeah, they do exist. And this is what birds and insects use to travel and to cross the planet. And humans have been using them to cross the planet for a very long time. Original Australians called them songlines, and they've been called dragon lines in China, I think it is. So we've got, different people calling it different things. And as I say at the bottom here, materialism has a lot to answer for. I interviewed a really amazing man, Dr. Stephen Young, who's a nuclear physicist recently, and he gave us a knowledge transfer session for Ley Love Down, and he was describing how, the ether was basically struck off the table so that we couldn't have a science of consciousness if they took ether away. So then they could say there's no such thing as a soul. And that's where materialism in the sciences was born. And I really recommend watching that interview. It's a really, really good one. We don't get to interview nuclear physicists very often. So this is where the evidence comes in that we actually can see ley lines. So the National Library of Medicine has an article which curiously was published on the June solstice, which is pretty cool, 21st of June in 2011. So I'll just read it. Humans are not believed to have a magnetic sense, even though many animals use the Earth's magnetic field for orientation and navigation. One model of magnetosensing in animals proposes that geometric fields are perceived by light-sensitive chemical reactions involving the flavor protein cryptochrome CRY. Here we show using a transgenic approach that human CRY2 is heavily expressed in the retina, can function as a magnetosensor in the magnetoreception system, and they're just describing Drosophila, which is a kind of fruit fly, and that it does so in a light-dependent manner. The results show that human CRY2 has the molecular capability to function as a light-sensitive magnetosensor and reopen an area of sensory biology that is ready for further exploration in humans. And that's what Rory Duff was. He's a geobiologist. There we go. Just finally came in. Yeah, so we can see them. We can see ley lines. We have the equipment. We have cryptochromes, which are magnetic sensors in the retina, and we can see them. And we have exactly the same sensors, these CRY2 cryptochromes, these flavoprotein photoreceptors as insects and birds that we know use ley lines to navigate. So this CRY2 has the molecular capability to function as a light-sensitive magnetosensor, and it's creating a renewed interest in human magnetoreception. And monarch butterflies use the ley lines to cross the world. We know that they have an amazing migration pattern. So it's very exciting when I found this, because I've been talking about seeing ley lines, and I always worry about people saying, "Oh, you must be a quack if you're saying that sort of thing." To find this article was just made me so very, very happy when I found it. So again, there's a lot of talk around this. It's not a secret anymore. Robin Baker, who was one of the men who did a lot of research into this, had a lot of pushback. And I like to share this quote from him because there's a story around this that's just so utterly ridiculous, which is this materialistic scientific, which is really a lot to do with secret societies, not wanting the plebs, all of us, to know about these things. So regarding his extensive replicable scientific research proving the human ability to intuit ley lines, I'll just quote Robin here, magnetoreception is just one element in an integrated navigational armory that involves all the available sensors and uses a wide range of environmental information. The stark contrast between positive results, which means proven results, and negative interpretations remains an unexplained feature of the literature on human magnetoreception. So what he's saying there is he can replicate the studies. He's proven that we can see them. And yet he gets a lot of pushback. And that's from other scientists. And I've looked at some of the pushback, and it's just stupid. It's so ridiculous. So the reason I showed the first quote from Robin is because it's not just sight. There is an integrated navigational armory, different sensors that brings the whole picture together. And one of the stupid studies that they tried to use to disprove this obvious evidence that we can see ley lines was a study of pigeons where they actually blindfolded them and expected them to fly along a ley line. Curious. Very curious. And it was, and the wording of this study was, it reminds me now, I did a dig on Epstein's Row Ranch recently, and there was a Project Grudge, and that was to disprove that UFOs exist, and they called it Grudge. And what's a grudge? It's where you get really annoyed with somebody. Well, when I was reading these stupid studies that were trying to refute Robin Baker's very intelligent work, it was really the wording. It was derogatory in these other studies that they were trying to prove him wrong. It was kind of vicious. It was really weird. So again, that takes me to, the possibility that some of these people were in secret society cults. Cult members don't tend to be empathic or sympathetic, kind. They tend to be, begrudging and nasty. So many different cultures have ley line lore. Our original Australians obviously have them. They call them song lines or dream lines. We also have, dragon lines, spirit lines in other cultures. So they've been known of for forever. It's only, in the materialist scientists in the last, say, 100 odd years that are, well, probably a little bit longer because Alfred Watkins wrote his book in 1925 and they were, saying that he was the grandfather, like this was new knowledge apparently in 1925. And yet, the Romans knew all about them. But, I'm not having a go at Alfred Watkins. It's just interesting how you have periods of time where you've got things happening and then history gets wiped and all the knowledge gets taken. And the knowledge of ley lines was taken at one point, and then people like Alfred Watkins brought it back. And of course, our original peoples have always known it. They just don't get the light of day. They don't get to speak about it because, obviously they've been decimated, partly because of this. It's not wanted. They're not. It's not good for the secret societies to have Indigenous people who care for the land balancing out the frequencies that these scumbag secret society people are pumping in. So, this is another reason why it's not just a land grab, and it's not just because they want to steal their children, which they do over and over and over again, and in just about every country that ever been colonized, it's been a land grab and children have been stolen. And that happens over and over and over again, which again, this is such a over pervading process and pattern. It's hard to ignore. So this is a crop circle. This is basically talking about how, scientifically undetectable earth energy fields. There's all sorts of things, devices that you can use to find a ley line. And, a lot of people, even, your farmer that doesn't even believe in psychic abilities will use divining rods to find water or to find things on their properties. So yeah, you can find them and they're real. But it's just talking about this Natural Lands article, is just talking about how meridians called ley lines are often believed to be magnetic in frequency. So again, this, if this is a portal, and a lot of crop circles obviously are circular, ley lines, when they cross over, create a sphere of energy, which is a vortex, a spherical sphere, a vortex of energy. You can see portals. They're not as easy to see as ley lines, but you can see them. And again, my theory on crop circles is, and there's an amazing, I share this in my first level psychic development course, there's an amazing piece of footage of Oliver's, a crop circle forming just nearby to Oliver's Castle in the UK. And you can see two white balls, which I assume are ball lightning, traveling in unison in a circular fashion as the crop circle appears. Now, ball lightning is microwave frequency, it's plasma, but it emits microwaves. And the only the proof of a genuine crop circle is that the nodes, the strongest part of the stalks of the plants that get crop circled, uh, those are actually there's microwave energy detected in those nodes. They cook from the inside out. So that it's not, and obviously there's some people that go out there with a board and they just squash the plants down. Well, that's not a genuine crop circle, and they can tell that because the nodes haven't cooked from the inside out. So what happens with the crop circles, the genuine ones like this footage I share in my course of Oliver's Castle, the ball lightning is emitting the microwave energy, and it's actually getting the two balls that work in unison to create this crop circle in this footage. They're caught in a pair of ley lines. A lot of ley lines travel in pairs, and you see this all the time. And one's usually smaller than the other. It's often a negative ley line with a positive ley line. So there are negatively affecting ley lines. And they're usually smaller in diameter, roughly about a foot across. And this is not always, this is just, generality. And then you have your positively affecting ley lines that usually are roughly about 2 to 3 meters across. So these two balls of ball lightning, are caught in two channels, two earth energy lines as the earth energy lines go into the vortex space, the crossing point, and they travel around in a circle a couple of times, print out this beautiful image, and then they fly off. And it's, to me, because I know that the ley lines and portals are akashic, to me it's like printing. It's like when you put a needle in a record and you get sound coming out, It's information being printed out. Now, I can't share what I'm going to share today without discussing plant consciousness. And it's been proven that plants are conscious. I love this image. It's a Kirlian photograph of a leaf after the leaf has been cut. And the soul of the leaf still exists. The energetic aura of the leaf is still there, which is just incredible. It's damaged, obviously, because it's partial, but it's still there. And if you watch programs like Fantastic Fungi, that talks about how the trees will feed one another. If you've got a series of trees and you cover one up so that it can't get any sunlight, the trees around it that are like trees, same species, will feed it through the root system, through the mycelium. So mycelium is a fungus that grows underground, and it's like a telecommunications system for plants in symbiotic spaces. In endemic forests generally is where it grows. It's wonderful because it gives off negative ions, which are very positively affecting for humans and animals. And that mycelium is also like a channel that these plants and trees will feed one another through. So these trees are caring for the tree that cannot get food because it's been covered so it can't get any sunlight. Now, people have argued, well, it's because, that tree in amongst the other trees, if it falls down, it might take some of the other trees with it. That's why the trees are doing it. There's always, got to, what is it with science? They've got to pare everything down to the most basic thing instead of thinking, oh, maybe the plant's got a soul, maybe it cares, and maybe they're siblings. I'm convinced of plant consciousness. And, there's been so many studies that prove that plants are conscious. So one of the most powerful studies, and I heard about this when I was a teenager, going back away in the 80s. So there were studies at that time where technicians they had a series of plants, tomato plants, and they would go up and they had all these electrodes and things all over the tomato plant, and then they would, or whatever devices they were using, I'm just assuming they were electrodes, and they would go up and they would ravish the plant in some way. They'd cut the leaves off or something like that. And the tomato plant would produce a lot of volatile organic compounds as a result. And that's uh, a signaling device for the other plants. And it's also, I guess it's the plant's way of saying, get away from me. What they found was the plants, when the technicians would approach them, would react as if they'd already been cut when the technician hadn't even cut them yet, or interfered with them or ravished them in whatever way they were doing it. So that's precognition. The tomato plant knew what was coming. So that's not just a series of chemical reactions from a stimulus. It's recognition and foretelling that they're going to be attacked, which is just amazing. So guess what? They think and feel just like animals and people, which means vegetarianism isn't exactly what we thought it was. I was vegetarian for 10 years. No, I didn't really understand at that time the consciousness of plants. I was still too young to really understand. So I've just got a little diagram here just to give you a bit of an idea of the aura. And the reason I'm sharing this is because the technique to see ley lines is the same technique that you would use to see an aura. So there are different aspects of the aura. So I've drawn in sort of, beige because I couldn't draw white on white, the etheric aspect of the aura, and I've only put it in one place because usually when you look at somebody and you're trying to see their etheric, you usually focus on one side of the head. So I've only drawn it in on one side, and it really is around the entire body. It's around the whole head, but I've just popped it on one side just as an example. This is just something I share in my psychic development course. So the etheric is usually about a centimetre to an inch wide. It's a fuzzy white line really obvious around the head and shoulders. I always have a white background when I'm doing interviews or when I'm doing these sorts of presentations or when I teach my course, because that way you can always see my aura. When I get very excited, my course members often contact me and say, I saw your aura flaring and it was this color, and it's quite cool. So when you're excited, your aura will flare out. And there are ways you can bring it in as well. So that's what the etheric looks like, and that's the first aspect of the aura, around the head and shoulders, fuzzy white line, generally brighter than the rest of the background. And the best way to see an aura is if the person's well lit, sunlight's best, against a light background. Then you've got the middle aura, which is around sort of in this sort of area. That's just chakra point. So middle aura is sort of around here, and this is where you'll get some color. And then you've got the outer aura where you'll see the color of the next soul frequency that the person's about to achieve. So as we get enlightened as people, we go up in soul frequency. And then we've got, I've just drawn in the shield. It doesn't look like that. It's usually doesn't have a color or it's not necessarily a perfect line either. But just to give a bit of an idea that it's finite. You know, the soul doesn't just go off forever. Some people's auras are much larger than this. This is just a general picture of what an aura might look like. So again, you've got in this space, you'll have the colored space. You'll have is in the middle aura. Now, to see the aura, you do need to let your eyes go into relaxed vision, and I mentioned that earlier. And that is where you're not focused on a point. So you'll get relaxed vision when you've been watching the TV for a long time or watching a screen for a while, and you're just not focused anywhere. You're getting tired, your mind's wandering, and then you might actually get the experience of actually seeing somebody's aura or seeing the etheric, especially. The etheric is quite easy to see. Most people can learn that. The colors of the aura are quite subtle, and that does take some instruction to learn that. So I just wanted to teach you that. You will see Walter Kuhlner, who was the father of Kirlian photography, taught us that with relaxed vision, which is what I'm describing, where your eyes just aren't focused on a point, you will see a wider range of the electromagnetic spectrum. And this is what all aura readers do. They let their eyes go fuzzy, so they're not focused on a point, and then they can see the colors of the aura and the etheric. So this is an example. I'm going to go through a few photographs so you can see different kinds of ley lines, the aura of the ley line. So we'll be looking at different ley lines. So this is a Roman road, and I have to thank Aline for this series of photographs. So I'll go backwards and forwards as I go, just so you get a bit of an idea where the actual ley line is, and you might actually be able to see it. Some of these were just gorgeous examples because you could actually see the frequency. Now, again, it is subtle in these particular photographs. As we go along, they get more obvious. But I wanted to start with the Roman road because we know without doubt, it's absolutely proven that the Romans built their roads on ley lines. So, well, they actually built them on earth energy lines and straightened them into ley lines. As I said before, ley lines are straight alignments. Earth energy lines meander, and they're quite serpentine, and both Rory Duff and Alfred Watkins spoke about the serpentine aspect of earth energy lines. If I go backwards and forwards, you might see that there is a circle there. And again, these are subtle, but I did want to start with the Roman roads because it's a proven fact that they are on a ley line. Now, these are quite wide. So I'm not sure exactly how wide these roads are, but they look like they might be 3-4 meters wide. So these are quite large ley lines. The average ley lines more like this. So they are much easier to see in nature when you've got lots of plants around, again, because the plants don't like to grow within them. Trees don't like to grow within them. And no one's coming along in this situation with a brush cutter, cutting these perfect circles. And some of the pictures that are going to come up are just absolutely astonishing. And again, I would not have these pictures if it wasn't for, and I had a series of ley line pictures that I have in my course that I took myself, but some of them aren't as spectacular as these. They're obvious, but they're not this pretty. So I wanted to thank Mark F for some of these photographs. I mean, that's just astonishing. So again, it's once you learn how to see them, you can always see them. This is the beauty of it. And that's the overriding response that I have in my courses, that once people pick it up, it's like, oh, I can see them here and I can see them there and I can see them in my backyard, and I saw them at my mum's place, and I went for a walk the other day. I wasn't even trying to see them and they were everywhere. So it's pretty cool. So this is a really beautiful example. And again, you just can't get away from that. No one's drawn that in. That is a ley line. And again, you'll get circle after circle after circle in perspective. Again, this one's really specky. It's just uncanny, that line. So when you get that, I mean, and I've got I've had so many photographs shared with me by course members. I've had over 600 do the first course, the first level course where we specifically focus on this. And I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of photographs. Some people go out and they just get really excited about it and they take a lot of photos. I was doing the same thing when I first started seeing them. I was taking so many photographs, going back to the same place over and over again. This is a really good example, and this is Mark F's. I think he calls it Fairy Mountain. His photographs again. So this one's from Vanessa. So this is a really good example because they're not all perfect circles. Some of them are elliptical and more sort of squashed. Just beautiful. And that's just, again, I mean, it's like someone's drawn it in, but it's not. You can see it. You can see it without me even marking it with the red. It's so clear. And I usually teach, when I'm teaching this in my course, I usually teach, the best examples are where you see more than one circle, because then you've definitely got, it's not any possible chance of it's just some weird anomaly that you've got a circle, you've got a series of circles. And this is another lovely one. This one's Jodie's. Just amazing. And this has been over a period of time that I've been um, having these shared with me and marking them. Sometimes I haven't got the circles as thick a line, so hopefully you guys can see that well enough. So they're the easy ways to see them along paths because you've got the plants around, but you can also see them in situations like this. So this is obviously a natural path. At one point, someone's decided to put in railings and stairs, but you can still see the ley line going through, the original ley line that made that a path in the first place because the plants and trees were avoiding growing within it. This is just a street on the side. Obviously there's somebody's fence or gate there. It's just a little laneway. You can see one there as well because ley lines are literally everywhere. Rory Duff taught us that this is Anna V's photograph as well. There is scarcely a square kilometre on the face of the earth that doesn't have at least one ley line in it. So it's easy for dowsers to find them. I've got a few ley lines going through my house because I can dowse now and I can find them that way. Because I don't have a lot of bush and a lot of plants around. I do have plants, but they're not like, bushy ones that are going to show a ley line really easily. And I am in a built up area. So it's a little bit harder to see them in a built up area, but you still can in certain circumstances, like in this example. Another beautiful example. This must be also Anna V's, otherwise I would have put the name. Yeah, those ones I think are hollies. Oh, I want to get this right. I don't want to get it. I'd say these are hollies actually. Holly was, wow, prolific with her photographs, really good at finding them, really good at seeing them. So she would often mark them before I did. This is one of my absolute favourite photos I've ever seen of a ley line because there are so many circles and I haven't marked all of them because once I did try to mark them all at one point and it was just made a mess. It's just like, it was just a big, too many red circles, but you can see the striations here. There's more and more striations that I haven't even marked in there. That is just astonishing. And again, no one's going through with a comb or a brush cutter making all these perfect circles. There's no other explanation for it. It is a spiral working its way through nature. Absolutely beautiful. So you can also see them in other spaces. It's not always necessarily along a path. You can see them just anywhere. So this is a really good example from Mark, my friend. Just amazing. Amazing. So again, this is just on grass, but you can see, and when you have this light coming in dawn and dusk, it does seem to highlight them as well. It makes them easier to see. So it's quite beautiful. This crepuscular light comes in and it actually highlights this part of the ley. It's just gorgeous. Sometimes, if you're really special, an animal will show you the ley line. So this is Jim's picture, and I've shared this so many times. Uh, this was a profound experience too for Jim, which he also shared with me. He was kind enough to let me speak about it. So it wasn't just that the dingo showed himself in the ley line, and I'll just show you the ley. It's really clear. And one thing too, if you see these things in thumbnail form, in a smaller photograph, the circles are much more obvious. So if you ever think you might have one, then put it in a folder and look at it on your computer with, when it's just as a medium-sized icon or a large icon in your folder on the screen as a small thumbnail. And it'll be really, really obvious when you do that. I've put pictures up just because they're cool on, Telegram or something like that. And then I've gone to look at it on my phone and realised, oh my God, that photograph wasn't just cool, it actually had a ley line in it, because the circle's more obvious on my phone because it's in a small format. So the story that Jim shared with this was that it wasn't just the dingo showed itself, but he had a fire later that night. And one of the logs in the fire actually looked exactly like a dingo's face when it had burnt. It's just amazing. And that was a spiritual experience for him. So these ley lines can have either positive or negative effects. I find that larger, wider ones tend to be the more positively affecting. When you walk along a path that has, that has the circles and they're about 2 meters across, you feel really happy, you feel refreshed. The smaller layers you can't walk along as easily because the brush and the grass will grow around it, and it's smaller, around roughly about a foot across. But you can certainly see them because this is where the burrowing insects, the termites, the ants tend to focus and build their homes. So these vibrating insects tend to like the negative affecting ley lines, the smaller ones, which is really cool. And then you get your echidnas going along there as well. Apparently echidnas have a much more developed prefrontal cortex than humans, so they're actually extremely intelligent. So dingoes like the larger lays, roos like the larger lays, kangaroos, and then your burrowing creatures seem to like the smaller ones. And if you think about it, that because they're burrowing and they're creating a burrowing or tunneling frequency, perhaps they're part of their work is to help balance those negative ley lines. There is, a need for balance in these spaces, in these energy lines, because again, if you have too many negative lines, you're going to have deleterious effects on the physical health of those who live in that area. You can see ley lines over grass. It's not easy. This is an example. I chose this particular example because you can already see the ley between the bushes. It's quite clear. So I've got this as an example. So it's showing itself in a couple of places. And again, you need to see these things in perspective. The circles need to be in perspective. So as this circle goes away in perspective, it is the same, it's the right size, and then it goes down a hill, and then it goes between the plants, so it gets smaller. So again, the circles tend to go in perspective. I'll go backwards and forwards so hopefully you guys can see them. So you can see that line there. And sometimes when they're hovering over grass, you won't necessarily see them. The entire circle might not be obvious, but enough of it will be. You can also see them, on sand, which is just astonishing. Now, wanted to thank Holly again. I've had a few hollies, so I'm not 100% sure if it's the same holly. So this is just, you probably can't see it yet, but once I point it out, you can't not see it. The circle's so perfect. Look at that. It's just a perfect circle. Just nowhere. It's just out in the middle of nowhere. So again, in perspective, you can see the other one as well. So, and that was Vanessa. So again, you'll get trees growing in really weird formations, really uncomfortable looking. They'll sort of look like they don't want to be there. And this one's really clear in the background. This circle's really clear. Just beautiful. So what we're seeing is refraction of light within the ley. And there is this, Alfred Watkins wrote about a curious affinity between the word grove and light, and that, that it's possible that the two words were interchangeable because in these groves of trees, you'll see light anomalies like a ley line. And thank you to Heidi for this as well. This one's really astonishing. So this is where we start to get into the spiritual aspect of these trees. So when a tree grows like this, it's not normal. That is not the normal way for a tree to grow. So what we've got here, and I want to move backwards and forwards so you can see the ley line first, and then we'll focus on what's actually on the tree. So in perspective again, the tree is avoiding it because the ley is literally, it's growing right around it. So what we have here is this very uncanny facial-like structure on the tree. It's obviously where a limb has fallen off, and this, thank you to Leanne for sharing this. And this sort of humanoid apparition on a tree is not uncommon around a ley line. In fact, in around about 90% of cases, with the photographs that I've taken, my course members have taken, you'll see these humanoid apparitions in the bushes, in the trees, on the trees, in the actual bark. And in 90% of cases, they'll be looking into the ley line. They won't be looking in another direction. They'll be looking into the ley line. So this is known as the green man phenomena. It's a nature spirit, basically, within the tree, or the tree's soul, because trees have souls. And they are pointing out to us how significant the ley lines are. They want us to know. So how do you engage with a human being? You show a humanoid apparition. Some of these are not frozen in the bark of the tree. They might just be made up by the wind movement of the leaves at the time that the photograph was taken. So it's not always very structured and obviously they're sort of in a type of permanence. A lot of these are ephemeral. Some of the most beautiful photographs I've ever taken are these ephemeral nature spirits showing themselves in a bush or in leaves as the tree moves or the plant moves. And, astonishingly obvious facial imagery. This is one that I took many, many years ago. And you can see it's like there's an eye there, big nose, downturned mouth, there's the chin. You've got some warty bits, another warty bit, and it's looking into a ley line. And this is actually one of the images that I actually shared this post because I just thought the tree was amazing because it looks like a grandfather tree. It looks like an old man's face. But it's actually looking into a portal, and I didn't realize that until I actually posted on Telegram, and then I was looking at my little phone and it was in that very small form and I could see the portal. So I believe that's actually a portal space, not a ley line, because it is so large and because it seems to be replicated down here as well. So we've got other ley lines moving in. So when you have a portal, you have crossing points of ley lines. It's a crossing point of ley lines. So there'd be multiple ley lines feeding into this one. The thing with ley lines, if you're not standing in the cross section, you won't see it. So if we've got ley lines going crossways here, traveling in a spiral, that way, we are not going to see them until we're standing in it, looking down it. So keep that in mind if you're out doing a ley line hunt. You won't see them unless you're actually standing in the ley line itself, looking down it. And what I often tell people is if you're in a situation like this and you're just thinking, is it a ley line? Is it a portal? And if you feel you've got your energetic protection in place, because you don't want to be mucking around with these spaces, because where you have beautiful, loving nature spirits, you can also have dark. The pagans obviously were, doing their horrific rituals to the darker spirits that they were calling up. So you do need to go into these spaces with energetic protection. That's something I teach in my course. You can read books and learn how to energetically protect yourself. But if you do feel comfortable standing in a space like that, if you think you've found a portal and you think you've photographed a portal, go into the space and take photographs with yourself as the pivot point in the portal space, take photographs at 360, then look at the photos afterwards and do you see any ley lines going into that space? And if you've got multiple, yeah, you've got yourself a portal. So these humanoid apparitions are, again, are known as the Green Man phenomena, and that they made up these polytheistic religions like paganism, and the original Australians are also polytheistic, so they believe in lots of different nature spirits and gods. They don't have just one god like the Catholic Christian God. They have many gods. And this is an example of a nature spirit being represented in Southall Minster, which is a church in the UK. And they've actually got the foliage coming out of the mouth of the humanoid apparition. They actually did these images in this church and many, many churches across the UK when they came in and took over the pagan ritual spaces because they wanted to try and invite the pagans in, and they weren't going to get them to come in unless they showed their nature spirits that they had been worshipping. So the reason why the foliage comes out of the mouth is because it's a representation, it's a symbol of communication, because these nature spirits communicate through the leaves, through the trees. And so the representation is that is coming out of the mouth because that's the communication. So this is quite an amazing image as well. This is from Jessie. So we've got an eye there, a nose, lips, chin. It just reminds me of a swashbuckling individual for some reason. I just get that. And these are the sorts of images that people have carved and created, and this is also in another church over a long period of time. And you can see these things out in nature, particularly around ley lines. So again, there's just an article talking about the Green Man. These are some more images of Green Mans. This is Alicia's. I just about fell off my chair when I saw this one. This one's just astonishing. And again, from a distance, it's more obvious than very, very close up. And this one's from Alia, which is, it's actually, so like a monkey. I mean, it's, or a little gargoyle or something. Eye, nose, you've got the lips, you've got an ear. And this is like a, I don't think it's from a limb falling off. I think it's like a gourd or a, can't remember the actual term for those things that grow on the side of trees. It'll come to me. More amazing images. So this is an inverted image. This is actually upside down, and it's from Gina. And Gina knew the location and actually had, suspicions that a girl went missing and may have passed in that particular location. And you look at this from the right angle and it looks like a sad little girl with her hair marked out and everything. It's really quite astonishing. And this one on the right again, really quite incredible. It's quite clearly eye, nose, lips. And this is from Bella, who shared this with me as well. Just a wow picture. And these ones are from Holly. Again, this one looks like it's just about to walk away on a tree. Really just, astonishingly beautiful. So I presented at the Living Free Festival in August of 2025. And as part of going there, I was planning to do a ley line walk and talk and take people along with me. I hadn't been there before. I just had to hope that there would be something interesting to show people. And my word, there was. So there was this tree stump, which just happens to have a humanoid apparition. And what was really uncanny is that the same gaping mouth type apparition was on both sides of this tree stump. So we've got nose and two eyes. On the other side, you can see really lovely profile of a nose and a brow and the cheek and the mouth. And they're both staring into individual ley lines, which is just uncanny. I was pretty excited. I'll be doing the Living Free Festival again this year, 2026. So I've just marked the ley line quite clear, just beautiful. And in the other direction as well, which is the road, obviously. So, and that's where this one's facing into as well. So this one's facing into the other ley line and this one's facing into this ley line. And I just, what are the chances that I just happened to find that? And I'd never been there before. So this is Albury Stone Circle in the UK. This was shared to me by Emma Jensen. Thank you very much, Emma. And again, when you've got this crepuscular light where you've got the rays coming in, you can see the layers much more clearly. So I'll go backwards and forwards. Again, it's not as obvious over grass, but once you get used to seeing these things, you pick it up faster. Very beautiful. So that's the end of the presentation. I just wanted to make it reasonably short today. So I am co-founder of the Ley Love Down project. We have a beautiful group of volunteers. We have amazing meditation facilitators, multiple now, who work in different time zones. We are doing our very, very best to bring this information to people to help people understand how important ley lines are. There's talk in the Bible that the last fight will be over the ley lines, and I think that's what's going on now. I think that's what we're seeing. We understand now that arenas, court buildings, schools, amphitheaters, theaters, cinemas, all these different buildings are, schools, churches, shrines, monuments are all in significant ley line crossing points. Your Parliament houses, all these piezoelectric stone buildings are built in these crossing points of ley lines. The church that I showed you before that had the Southwell Minster, its cornerstone, the church cornerstone was the old pagan ritual stone. So they would go into the Roman pagan sacrificial spaces where they would do human sacrifices, and they would take it over and build a church. But they would use the sacrifice stone it's the cornerstone for the church. That's a hell of a metaphor. Cornerstone of the church. I'll just leave it at that. I get very frustrated with some people because they just don't understand, eating the body of Christ and drinking the blood of Christ. It's a cannibalistic ritual. I know I'm not picking on Catholics or Christians or anybody else, but it's just very, very wrong that to depict a sacrificed individual as someone to worship. Why would you want to worship somebody who's up on a cross in their sacrificial state? That is a warning to whistleblowers. It's not something you want to worship. Why would you take your children into a space like that to see something like that? But it's really interesting because, people in these organized religions can't see it. Like they can't see that Jesus Christ was a prophet, which meant he was psychic because he was clairvoyant, because he could see the future. But if you say that to somebody, oh my Lord, they get so angry. He was an alchemist. Sorry, I'm going to keep talking about this because it's so frustrating. I have people, I had to deal with some pretty horrible stuff as a child because my father was a Satanist. But I have people who read a book and think they know more about it than I do because they read a book, Oh, good grief. Okay, so rant over. We have knowledge transfers for Ley Love Down as well. We interview incredible people. These are just some of the incredible people that we've interviewed, and we've got even more amazing, incredible, not saying that they're more incredible than these people, but we have an amazing lineup as well coming up of knowledge transfer sessions, and we do one of these every month. So please join Ley Love Down, and even if it's just for to watch the knowledge transfer sessions or for the meditations, because we have our beautiful group meditations. And these are for people who either can't get out into the ley lines for whatever reason, or who want to do their work in the ley lines and do it in a group. They might not be able to find a group of people in their local area yet that are really loving the ley lines and wanting to go out in them together. So they might join a group meditation. And again, we have lots of facilitators. So we have them in the UK, USA, Australian time zones. So we work with all the different time zones so that there's going to be a time zone that works for you. We also have, we're on all these different socials. We have masterclasses. We have the on-site protocol masterclass. The last time I taught a masterclass, like a ley line presentation like this was in 2024. So it's time to update with some new stuff today. I also teach courses on how to either see ley lines, read auras, or full-on psychic development. So, remote viewing, opening up your psychic abilities, and being able to use those in a profession if you choose to. We're at an amazing crossroads where a lot of people are realizing they don't really want to be working for somebody else. They want to work for themselves. My recommendation is to find something that you love. Do what you love for a living. That is the absolute, uh, that is perfection, in my opinion. I've got uh, workshops coming up. I don't often teach uh, one-to-one or in person. I do some guided ley line walks occasionally, and I'm doing one at this beautiful retreat in Queensland, 10th to 14th of April. Absolutely beautiful locations, just stunning. That link, if you want to freeze this and just, write the link out and find the website, that'll give you all the different accommodation that's available. Scroll down, because what might come straight up might be the one that's, that might be sold out, but there'll be other options underneath. So yeah, I've been sharing this a bit lately, and people keep coming back to me and saying, oh, they're all sold out. And it's like, no, it's just that little first part of the page you've got to roll down to find the other options. So there's camping and rustic cabins and rustic rooms left. And it's just going to be amazing. So I'm going to be teaching similar to this, ley line information. I'm going to be teaching people how to read auras, and I'm going to be going on ley line hunts. We're just going to hang out basically for 4 days, have meals together and just have fun. I'll also be speaking with Kellen Campbell in Adelaide at the Parks Recreation and Sports Centre, 2nd of May, 9 till 5. And I believe they're doing something the next day as well. So I'm not doing a full-on presentation or anything. I'm just going to be having a chat with them, and then we're going to be catching up again on the Sunday the next day. So 2nd and 3rd of May, Saturday and Sunday, 2026. Again, I'll be doing Living Free Festival in September. So looking forward to that again. It was amazing last time. Beautiful group of people, and Dave and Erin, who run it, are just next level, gorgeous people. So again, go to livingfreefestival.org. And lastly, I'll be at Cosmic Consciousness Conference again this year. Last year was in Tambourine Mountain, which was beautiful. The year before was in Uluru, which was absolutely stunning for the across the permanent harmony time of the ley lines, which we were in a dragon line crossing at that time. Dragon lines are the most powerful, largest of all ley lines. And that crossing point at Uluru is a chakra point of the earth. So that shows you how rare and special it is, because there's only, 7 chakra points that we know of on the earth. And this year, Cosmic Consciousness Conference is going to be in Tasmania, in Launceston, and it goes from the 8th to the 10th of the conference. But then on the 11th of the 11th, we have a day trip to Cradle Mountain, which will just be amazing. So we'll be spending that there. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learnt how to see a ley line today. If you'd like to catch up with any of those things, you can always go and check me out at www.sixscience.com. You can find me there, and there's a contact page if you want to email or anything like that. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely day.